How to never feel disappointment. So you can actually rid disappointment from your life, and that would probably be welcome to a lot of people. Let me give you an example. The other day, this was Friday night, I went to the beach and uh, I just found a really nice spot, and the weather was good, and everything was looking up that day. And it had rained earlier. There was like a rainbow and all this stuff. So I decided to share my joy and reached out to the group chat with a couple friends of mine in the group chat. Well, they said, okay, we need proof. Send us a picture that this is really great, and maybe we'll come out. So I sent proof. I sent the picture. Then one of the ladies took my picture and then reposted it in another group chat. And by the time they were done, um, they must have had like a good like 8 to 10 people that ended up coming out to come hang out on the beach that day. So in the evening, after it got dark and we packed everything up, some of the acquaintances, they weren't close friends of mine. They said, "Hey, we're gonna go to this bar, this restaurant. Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll meet you there." And I met them there, and then they said, "Hey, we're gonna walk over to this other bar slash restaurant. Why don't you meet us there?" And I said, "Sure. I'm just gonna move my car so that my car doesn't get a ticket." And I moved my car. I got to the restaurant. I figured I probably got there faster than them because they were walking. So I waited and I ordered myself something to drink and something to eat. And I waited and I waited and they never showed up. These people that told me, "Hey, yeah, meet us over here. We're coming over there. We're going to meet you." They just never showed up. Now, they weren't really close friends of mine. They were just kind of acquaintances. I had hung out with them a couple times before. But I was a little upset. But I wasn't upset because I felt disappointed. I was upset because I had spent money on this food, but I had food at home and I was only coming out to be social. I didn't need to buy food out. I preferred to save my money and just eat at home. So I was upset about the loss of the money, but I didn't feel disappointed. How come I didn't feel disappointed? After all, they had really pulled the classic, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna meet you here," and then they just don't show up. Why didn't I feel disappointed? Well, I'm going to give you that secret to be able to get through life without feeling disappointed. Um, and I'll tell you kind of what happened toward the end of the night, which was very interesting. But I want to address what disappointment really is and why trauma survivors can really struggle with disappointment so that I can meet you where you may be right now. When we talk about this concept of disappointment, we go by the dictionary definition, that feeling of a failure to have fulfilled expectations or wishes. So when something fails to fulfill your expectations. In Portuguese, they use a term for disappointment, decepcionado. Decepcionado, when literally translated, means I feel deceived. And isn't that what disappointment feels like? It's like you're tricked, right? For many of us, we would have felt tricked to be in the restaurant waiting, and then you thought the people were going to show, and then they just don't show. And you go, I feel decepcionado. I feel tricked, right? Deceived. And so when we feel deceived, fooled, tricked, let down, disappointed, that can trigger anger. And so for many trauma survivors, they're having intense emotional reactions because they have trouble regulating their emotions. Have you experienced that where you get overwhelming sadness as a part of your disappointment, or you feel overwhelming anger or a sense of anxiety, like, well, now I'm in fear to keep myself from feeling this feeling again in the future. And now you're being extra cautious and extra fearful, trying to prevent yourself from feeling disappointed again in the future. For many trauma survivors, when they feel disappointed, they go into self blame. Uh, Self blame is where they're looking at the whole situation as being their fault in some way. And that's how they kind of deal with the disappointment because it feels out of control. Something happened that was out of control. So if you self blame, you blame yourself, then you kind of feel a little bit more like you're in control of the situation. There's something about this that you can control. It's your fault. You shouldn't have trusted that guy, right? That guy was unfaithful, so you shouldn't have trusted that guy, or you shouldn't have trusted a man, or you shouldn't have gotten into a relationship. Does that sound familiar? So you blame yourself for the disappointments that the world brings upon you. Darn it, I put myself in this position. For many trauma survivors, they go into hypervigilance. Disappointment can trigger a hyper sense of alertness and anxiety, causing them to be excessively cautious and worried. For some trauma survivors, they have a difficulty with their self-esteem. So, oh, they didn't come out and they didn't hang out with me. It's because of me. It's because they don't want to be around someone like me. It's because they don't like me. It's because, right, I'm not attractive. I'm not fun. I'm not wanted. I'm not loved. I'm not lovable. And that low self-esteem comes from that low self-talk. And you're getting a confirmation bias when your friends ditch you or your meal comes out and the meal wasn't the way you ordered the meal, right? And and it wasn't what you thought it was going to be and you're disappointed and you click into self-esteem issues. Why does this always happen to me? Is it something I said? Did I do this wrong? Right? And that all of that harms the self-identity, which is the problem for for those trauma survivors who have CPTSD. It's that loss of self-identity, that loss of the strong, fluffy ego. Instead, they have a decrepit, emaciated version of themselves in their mind. They don't know who they are. They feel like they don't know if they are lovable, if they are wanted, if they are desirable. They've learned to drop their ego in favor of being there for other people to the point where they're just hyper vigilant and worried about how everyone else feels, and they've lost touch with themselves. And many survivors have said, I don't know what I want. I feel like I don't even know what I want to even do what I would want to do. I don't know who I am. Really, your relationship with your narcissistic parent is a bunch of disappointment, isn't it? You have a very tough relationship with disappointment as a trauma survivor because your dad disappointed you all the time. He said he was going to do something, then he just wouldn't do it. Or he says he's going to do something, he shows up to do it, but he's got a bad attitude. Or he makes it terrible for you. You go to them to get them involved in something, and they make the whole thing turn out to be a horrible experience. You have a tough relationship with disappointment as a trauma survivor. And you have to take that into consideration. But notice that definition of what disappointment is. The definition of disappointment is the failure of fulfilled expectations. So you're feeling a sense of failure or letdown because your expectations weren't fulfilled. There is a direct correlation between expectations and disappointment. Direct. In fact, they are hinged on one another, expectations and disappointment, so much so that you can't feel disappointment if you have no expectations. It is that predictable. And because it's that predictable, you can prevent yourself from ever feeling disappointment again by removing expectations. And that was my secret on Friday night, why I didn't feel disappointed at all that these people didn't show up at the restaurant. They said they were going to. They almost tricked me. But I remembered not to have any expectations. So I just sat in a world where I cannot predict the future. And I ordered my food, and I thought they may come, But I was careful not to set an expectation that they would be there. So I was not disappointed that they didn't come. I only was sad that I had spent money when I didn't need to. I was inconvenienced. And that's something I could deal with. So I did not jump into the group chat with the hate mail. How could you guys do this to me? What is the deal? With the passive aggressive, is everything okay? To point out that they messed up, that they did something wrong, that they wronged me. I didn't hit them with the feel sorry for me. Here's a picture of me alone in the restaurant, looking forlorn. No one is with me. There was no need. Because after I got over my feeling of inconvenience, the fact that I had spent money when I really wanted to eat the food I had at home, I packed up what I had left of my food and I left with no feelings associated with the situation. It was what it was. I'll see them when I see them. They were not my close friends anyway. And when I do see them, because there's no deep emotional scars here, I'll be able to address the situation with humor. What are you talking about? You want to go out tonight? You guys left me hanging last time. Oh my God, did we? Blah, blah, blah. I can see it unfolding already. It will become an inside joke. And we'll deal with it with laughter. And we're only able to do that because why? Because I have emotional control, because I have adopted the philosophy of not having any expectation. Although I'm still mad about the $27 that I ended up spending on my food and drink at this restaurant. But you know what's interesting? When I went home, on the ground, I found $20 cash just laying on the ground. I looked to the right and to the left, and there were no people. There was just $20 sitting there. And I said, you know what? I lost 27. I got 20 back. Cool. I didn't expect the $20 to be here on the ground. It just was here. But let me ask you, you sitting at home, if I had expected there to be $50, do you think I would have been happy with my $20? Do you think I would have said, cool, it all worked out? If you expect 50 and you get 20, you are disappointed. How did disappointment get back in the conversation? Because when you have an expectation, then you're setting yourself up for the potential to be disappointed. It's a virtual inevitability. So I'm going to help you to understand how to actually put this into action in your life. But this is difficult for trauma survivors because you were raised in a world of expectations, right? That's how it always worked for you. Your parents expected things of you. Your community expected things of you. Your teachers expected things of you. And so you went through life trying to fulfill their expectations. And by the way, it wasn't effective. And you just felt like a constant letdown. But anyhow, it was all types of pressure because you're trying to fulfill expectations. And then you grew up and then you had kids and then you put a bunch of expectations on them. You just thought that was the way the universe worked, right? Everybody's got a bunch of expectations. And then I got my expectations too. And then everybody's mad and disappointed all the time. And I'm mad and disappointed too. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be mad and disappointed all the time or sad and forlorn. When we have trauma, we may be perfectionists. It's a part of extreme thinking. It leads to perfectionistic tendencies. And so you believe that you can achieve perfection or very, very high standards. And therefore, what? You set an expectation on who? Yourself. You say, I have very high expectations of myself, Roman. You don't understand. When I do a report for work, when I clean my kitchen, when I wash my car, whatever it is, I have sky high expectations for myself. How's that working for you? Well, I suffer from procrastination because I don't ever want to get started on anything because I'm a perfectionist. Uh, yeah, it's not working well. The perfectionism doesn't work well. It sets you up for all types of disappointment. And you set high standards so that you're creating expectations through all your high achievements around you. So you feel like other people are expecting you to continue to perform at this very high level that you keep performing at. But you can't keep it up, can you? Let's be honest. Just between you and I right here, right now. Like the actual energy that it takes to keep performing at 100%, you can't do it, can you? No. And that's why you crash out, you don't show up, you go to bed, and you're in bed for 3 days, you feel exhausted, feel tired, you don't want to try anymore, you want to give up because you went from one extreme to the next. Well, that doesn't look very mentally healthy, does it? Like, oh yeah, I'm here. Hi, everybody. I'm amazing. I'm 100%. Ooh, look at how I can perform. Hey, what happened to Miranda? Where'd she go? She's gone. You call her? Did you call her? I don't know where she's at. Miranda's in bed. I can't come. I can't get out of bed. I can't face the world. What happened to the bright, vibrant? You see, this is not stable. This is not healthy what we're doing. So we got to stop setting sky high expectations for ourselves. We should also stop setting expectations for others. But I'm getting there. Self-worth issues play into the high expectations because for trauma survivors, when you don't have already inherent good self-worth, then you figure setting the high expectations is what's going to give you the worth, right? So if I just achieve really good and do really big things, then I'll have worth, then I'll have value, then I'll be worthy of love. But that's fallacy because our worth isn't dependent on our achievements or how people respond to our achievements, right? Our worth is inherent. And so we think that expectations is the same as setting goals, right? And you're setting these high expectations for your goals and you're wrapping it up into a big bow of more mental health issues. So we really need to learn how to overcome constantly having these expectations. For some, expectations are about validation. So we set the high expectations because we want to get that validation, that attaboy, that attagirl from other people, right? So let's talk about how we can do this right so that we can never feel disappointment again. Roman says, if I don't have expectations, I won't feel disappointment. He says, when all his buddies ditched him, they weren't really my close friends, but once they didn't show up at the restaurant they said they were going to show up at, he didn't feel any disappointment. So how do we get there? How do we get to this point where people can stiff us, they can not show up for appointments, and we're able to handle it? Well, setting no expectations means literally that you will not have an expectation or a idea of what the future is going to be. Setting no expectations, by definition, expectations are a vision of the future. That's the problem with expectations. They are a misplaced vision of the future. Not a optimistic, like, visualization of what you want to achieve while simultaneously recognizing that it may not happen exactly that way, but that you're going to put the effort in. That's not what an expectation is. An expectation is you creating a picture in your mind of what the future is going to be on a bunch of things you don't control. And if you think about that, that's silly because we can't predict the future. And so expectation is different than creative visualization because creative visualization is acknowledging that we don't control everything, but there are some things we can control. And we are purposely giving our mind the picture of what we would like to create with no expectation that it will be exactly that. That's visualization. Expectation is actually believing, by definition, that you know the future, according to the Oxford Dictionary. That's what I expected. It's actually silly, but you never knew that because everyone had expectations of you and you had expectations and you thought that that was the way to go. I'm giving it to you now. This is the sauce. I was dealing with a client today who had the biggest epiphany when we talked about this concept of letting go of expectation. She laughed. She cried. I heard her walk across one end of what I assume was the kitchen and then back across to the other end. She said, "This is a game changer. I just never thought about it this way, to have no expectation." When I meditate on that, I asked her to meditate on it. She said, when I meditate on it, it makes me feel happier. Not having any expectation of myself. Let's stop mandating that we know what the future is going to be. We don't know what the future is going to be. Feed yourself the truth. Tell yourself, I don't know. When you start to feel yourself creating an expectation, tell yourself, I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to feel, where I'm going to be. I don't know how well I will do on any measurement, on any scale. I don't know. We should not set expectations of ourselves. That sounds crazy, right? I'm going to give it to you again. Just try to let it sink in for a minute. We should not set expectations of ourselves. That sounds so anti achievement, doesn't it? Because we were always taught, hey, you should expect the best of yourself, right? We should not set expectations for ourselves. And lo and behold, you will finally be a good parent to yourself if you stop putting these expectations on yourself. So what's the difference between a goal and an expectation? Because we should have goals, right? Absolutely, you should have goals. But a goal is taking, of all the possibilities of the future, is taking one potential possibility that would be beneficial and focusing on it, which is one of the laws of healing and inner peace, is focus on the most beneficial possibility. It's not the same as setting an expectation, thinking that everything is going to be this way. That's not what setting a goal is. Setting a goal is looking forward to a place that you are not at where you hope to go. Well, what's the difference between hope and expectation? The difference between hope and expectation is that hope allows for the possibility, for the fact that it may not go the way that you think it's going to go. Hope is positivity. Hope is optimism. It's wanting for the best, but understanding that it may not go that way. That's why we call it hope. We say, I hope he will be there. Oh, hey, I hoped you would be home. But when someone is not home and you hoped they would be there, do you crash out into disappointment? No. When you didn't set the expectation and all there was is merely a hope, you might feel a tinge of letdown, but it's nothing like the pit of despair that disappointment from unfulfilled expectations can bring you. So hope can be joyful, whereas an expectation is a trap. And that's what expectations are. It's a trap because you can't predict the future. You cannot predict the future. But in expectations, we are automatically doing that. We're just like kind of on autopilot, predicting what the future is going to be. And man, do you get let down. So you should have expectations of what? Nothing. Nothing. I want you to have expectations of nothing. You should not expect that your car is going to start. When you get there, you should not expect your car is going to be there. You should not expect that your car tires are going to be on the car. You should expect nothing. So that when you get out to the parking lot or your driveway or your garage and you see that there's a car there and that it has all of its tires and that when you push the button to start or you turn the key and you hear the engine turn over, it actually starts, you can be filled with gratitude because that is the way you're supposed to be living your life. In gratitude, you should be amazed. I have a car. My car starts. Wow. Wow. Really? Why are you so happy about that? I had no expectation. I didn't know what would happen. This is such a blessing. And you can live truly in gratitude because you don't have any expectations. So as parents, we should have no expectation of our children. What? No expectation of children? No expectation of your children. This allows you to parent more effectively. Never tell your child, I'm disappointed. No, no. You were a child. Did that ever help you? For someone to hit you with the, I'm very disappointed. That's not helpful. If we have no expectation, that lines us up to be able to parent properly. So let's say the toys are on the ground yet again, and you've told the children, pick up the toys, don't leave the toys on the ground. You come home and there they are. The toys are on the ground. Ineffective parenting is welled up with the emotions, and the emotions are coming from the disappointment. Oh my gosh, I told these children. How could they do this? I'm so. What's that pain? Disappointment. Why? You had an expectation. Then what do you tell your kids? You disappointed me. Helpful to the children? Not so much. Not so much. It's an emotional reaction. Now they see you yelling and screaming and hitting and throwing or crying or whatever you're doing with your emotional reaction. And what did the children actually learn about picking up their toys? The lesson you have given them is that they better pick up their toys. Otherwise, there's something to be afraid of. So now you've taught them to be motivated by fear. Not the most effective way to parent. We've taught the children now to be motivated by fear of our reaction. And our reaction is so extreme because of the emotion, because we had the expectation. But if you take the advice here and you say, you know what, I've been working on this, and what I've learned is not to set expectation of my children. So now I'm going to come home, and before I come in the house, I'm going to reset my mind. I have no expectation. I don't expect it to be bad, but I don't expect it to be good. I don't know what it will be. And then walk in the house like a child full of wonder. Let's see what will happen. And then you see the toys on the ground. Can you sense the difference in your emotional state? Now all that pain isn't spiking because there's no disappointment. Because you simply walked in the house, you didn't know what you would find. You didn't expect to find anything one way or another. And now how are you able to parent your children more effectively? Because you are less emotional and reactive. You can properly say, children, can you come here, please? Sit down, stoop to their level. Look at what I'm noticing here, pointing at the toys on the ground. Do you see anything wrong with this picture? Oh, yeah, we're sorry. We forgot to pick up the toys. We'll do it now. Wait, hold on a second. Think about how this could make me feel. As your parent who loves you, who provides for you, I come home and I've asked you to do this, but you just don't do it. How could I feel? Disregarded. This could be potentially dangerous because someone could trip over this. I start going over the practical benefits, the reasons why they should care about picking up their toys. And now after that lecture, which they didn't enjoy at all, they learn something. And by the way, in either of these cases, we may have to do this several times before the children get the point, but they do learn. But the lesson now that they learn is that we pick up toys and it's not motivated by fear of mom or dad's reaction. It's motivated by wisdom, concern for others' feelings, concern for the safety of others, concern for the order of the household, respecting the rules, things that you were able to teach them because you were speaking to them calmly. That's proper discipline. That's good parenting. And it's all because you stopped putting the expectations on the children. Stop expecting that they will get good grades. Just teach them and guide them. Stop expecting that they will perform. Just teach them and guide them. Don't have expectations of your friends at all. Don't expect that they will not betray you. It's an inevitability. Humans betray. It's an inevitability. Don't set expectations that are only setting you up for disappointment. Don't have any expectations of your friends when a friend shows up. It's, wow, you came. They go, yeah, of course I came. But you're filled with happiness and joy and gratitude, and they're going to appreciate that gratitude you have toward them because you didn't set expectations of them. And so there's less fights. There's less you with the consternation and the straining and the resentment because there's no expectation set. You're focused on what you control, which is yourself. And whatever they bring to the table, it's a delight. It's something to be grateful for. Don't set expectations. But what about in romantic relationships of our spouse? We definitely got to have expectations there, right? No, don't set any expectations for anything or anyone. You can have standards, but not expectations. There's a difference. Standards means these are the qualifications you must meet to be my mate. Expectations are my emotions are wrapped up in if you live up to this vision that I've created of the future. And so then you're able to emotionally cope when they let you down, which everyone will let you down at some point in some way, hopefully small, but sometimes big. So that even if your mate cheats, you're able to handle it because you had no expectation. Wow. Well, I'm sad to see you did that. I'm sure you're really disappointed. No, you're not disappointed? No, I can't say that's the feeling I feel. Well, why not? Because I never had any expectation that you were going to behave one way or another. But I do have a standard, and you have broken that standard, so you're out. You understand? Doesn't it feel good to be able to have control of your person, of your being? And that's what it means to have no expectation. As a result, you will have no disappointment, and you will live a life that's easier to manage emotionally and happier overall. So I wish you the best and true inner peace with no expectation, and as a result, zero disappointment.